A new cheerleader. Tony had always been an athletic kid, but except for soccer and floor exercises in gymnastics, he was too small to play most games. He was now a high school freshman and had, in fact, made the soccer team, but that was not his first love. He was more of a gymnast, an acrobat of sorts. He could do backflips, handstands, walking, and flip-ups from a lay-down position, and his best trick was the running split, which he did with apparent ease. There wasn't another boy in the class that could do it, not even the kung fu kids. The only problem was that his school didn't offer gymnastics as a sport for boys, only for girls. The gym was big enough that they had a permanent practice pad for the runs. He was kidding with one of his girlfriends one day about ways to get into the football games for free, and she suggested he try out for the cheerleaders, something a boy had never done before. Tony did have all those moves and was, unfortunately, going to take after both his parents and be short, having probably reached his adult height of 5 feet 5 inches and 125 pounds. Brenda was, after all, already on the squad, and she could put a good word in. After some coaxing, he said that he would try out, and if he made it, then he could forget about having to buy a student pass to football and basketball. That was worth something. Tryouts were the second week of school. Tony was going to be a sophomore this year, and he wanted to earn a letter in something. He wasn't very good at soccer. Maybe he could do it in cheerleading. Well, Mrs. Kling was impressed with Tony's energy and all those gymnastic moves, so he was invited to join the squad. Watching a boy wave pom-poms was something new, but they would get used to it. The 4 girls who were already on the squad liked Tony and were not threatened by his prowess but rather impressed by it, and so they accepted him enthusiastically. He would jump up and wave his pom-poms when the team scored, but he didn't get all squealy and excited like the rest of the squad. It wasn't appropriate for a boy, he thought, even though the emotion was there. His mom was quite pleased, but his father was not too thrilled about his son being a cheerleader. "What kind of job is that for a boy?" he asked. "Give him a chance, Frank. After all, he's too small for team sports. What's he going to be wearing, Annie?" "Just the same as the rest of the squad, a tank, tee, or sweatshirt, except he'll wear pants or shorts, I guess," she said. "Well, I know they use boy cheerleaders in some colleges, but Tony had better not end up coming off wimpy," said his dad. "Oh, I don't think so, dear," she said. "The girls seem a little reserved about his being there, but they'll get over it, I'm sure." As practice progressed into October and the first game, Tony and the girls were ready with all their routines. Ordinarily, having a boy on the squad would mean that there would be lifts and some tossing around, but Tony was too small for that. He was right in the middle as to size, just as likely to be the one tossed. Instead, they featured each cheerleader in his or her specialty. The student body knew about the new cheerleader, and a lot of them were ready to make fun of him, but Tony did an exceptional job that left little room for criticism. He was there to create enthusiasm, and he did. They were surprised at his gymnastics, and most had not seen a boy do a flying split before. That got its own applause. As the weeks progressed and Tony became really friendly with the girls and less of an outsider, they were more accepting of him. The 4 of them hung out together on weekends and began to ask Tony if he would like to come along and began, for all intents and purposes, to treat him just as they did each other. He was a little embarrassed and uptight hanging with a bunch of girls, and at first, he refused. However, they persisted in inviting him. They liked him and knew that he brought something special to the team. So, from then on, if you wanted to find Tony, all you had to do was look for the rest of the cheerleaders, and there he'd be, or they knew where he was. When the school had a dance, he would dance with the ones who weren't taller than him. Tony's membership gave rise to another boy joining, but it soon became clear that he was there more to get next to the pretty girls than to do some serious work. At this point, Tony was still spending some time at the bowling alley with his buddies Carl and Rick. One of the things it was hard for Tony to get used to was the pom-poms and not only being energetic in his performance but also being graceful like the rest of them. However, he soon found himself jumping up and down, squealing, and carrying on with the rest when their team made a goal or touchdown. Being with the girls all the time, the squealing just became contagious. It was so subtle, he didn't notice his transition to a squealing teen. They worked on both the football and basketball games. Gradually, the sharp edges of his performance disappeared to be replaced with all of the aplomb that would have been expected had he really been one of the girls with all those gymnastic talents. Mrs. Kling seemed pleased with the streamlining, which made him seem more one of the group rather than a lone boy on the team. Except for the red pants and no bumps in his sweater, Tony could now easily pass in the upcoming cheerleading competition if it were not for the fact that he was a boy. There were no provisions in the rules for accommodating a male in the competition. Boys were not at all common as yet, at least in his district. She kept working on a way to get around that. He did have long hair, which he kept in a ponytail at the nape of his neck, and he did wear an earring, like most of the guys on the athletic teams. He wore the same saddle shoes and socks as the girls, too. Brenda had given him a cheerleader's bracelet to wear, which he wore to school most of the time. It was quite feminine, but it was, after all, a gift from a girlfriend.